All right, welcome to the Impact Effect podcast. I'm super excited today because we've got an amazing guest and a good friend of mine in the house, Nick Grayson.
Mr. Jim Morris. How's it going,
Man.
Finally, we're doing this. It's been long overdue. Long overdue.
Well, I'm excited today for a couple of reasons. One, to get in your brain, to get in your mind, but also two, as you know, we always start the podcast with how our guest defines the word impact. So what does impact mean to you, and how do you define it?
So this definition has changed and altered for me over the past 4 years or so, I think, right? If you would have asked me 4 years ago, I would have told you something completely different. Right now, and based on what I'm seeing in my own experience, growing my own business, growing every day, right? Learning a ton. It all goes back to yourself, right? And if you would have asked me 4 years ago, my impact would have all been centered around me, what I'm trying to do, right? Not about the other people, but like my impact.
Yeah.
But it's more so focused on
Like you impacting yourself?
Right.
Yeah.
But like affecting other people, but like your own impact is what you're focused on. And so now I'm starting to see that, yeah, you might have an impact on another person. But then I think the greater definition of it is the impact that they have on others. For example, if you have a impact or you influence or you affect someone else's life in some way, right? What are they going to do the same to other people?
Ooh,
So if you're helping someone, like in my instance, right, I help founders grow their startups, right? They're mobile app startups. And from my perspective, if I can help as many people as possible grow this thing, right? Think about all the people whose lives are going to be improved through their creation, right?
Totally.
And if you think about it that way, not from the person you're impacting, but the people that they're impacting, that group of people, the impact is almost limitless, right?
Well, with your work is
Right.
you're allowing an idea or which has been transformed to a product or a service,
Right.
to be able to impact the people that need that most.
Mm-hmm.
And your modality is the marketing side. So you're getting them in front of the people where their product or service solves a problem that's needed to be solved for that individual.
They have the idea. They're essentially trying to solve a problem for themselves.
Yep.
And we help them get that problem and that solution in front of more people.
The right people.
Right, the right people. And it's very interesting to look at it that way. And ever since my perspective shifted around that, it's improved all aspects of what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, right? It's not about me. It's not even about the client. It's about the people that the client is serving.
I love it.
Right.
So when you made that transition, was that recent? Like your mindset, was that several years back?
No, I think it was somewhat recent. I think that ever since we started App Talks, which is the roundtable discussion that we do every other week, we bring all these founders together. They get to share wins, challenges, exchange feedback, right? Help each other grow. And as this thing has grown, we just realized that, wow, like not only is this building a community around people who all are problem solvers and are offering solutions, but the full pool of people that they're affecting, right? And the people that are coming to me and saying, Nick, for the first time ever, I feel like I'm not alone in this. For the first time ever, I feel like I have the tools and resources in the community to help as many people as possible. As I've gotten that feedback and I've seen this thing grown, I don't see it as just like the people that are at the call, right? Yeah. I see it as, the million users they'll have in 2 years from now.
Totally. And I think too, like you just talked about something strategic with the feedback that you got, was what you've done has given that founder or that creator an opportunity to continue to progress. Right. Like I always think back, especially when we're having a good conversation, like Uber, like Uber is great because it gets a grandma who may not drive anymore because she's, elderly, to the doctor's appointment,
Point B,
which in turn gets her to the medication or the rehab center, whatever's needed to help her health and create longevity. So like when I think of Uber, I actually don't think of how I may have used it. I'm a little too buzzed. Let me get home after a late night. Here's $50 for my Uber. I think of it like, how many grandmas are getting the health care they need?
A whole lot of grandmas.
Right? Think about that. And that's the ripple effect of the product, of the service. So for you to see that so clearly, it's huge. And I'm curious, like when that talk to us about that moment when you realized that. Because that's profound. Like, bring us back to that, like, wow, this isn't about me. This isn't about my impact. This is about helping others.
Right. Well, when I start seeing the reviews come in for a new app, right, that we helped launch and help them go from, 0 to 1, right? They get it developed. They don't really have any kind of strategy going into it. And just as you mentioned, like Uber, the grandma example, right? Uber has countless other examples
Yeah.
of who it can serve. But when you're launching a product, you have a lot of tunnel vision, right? A lot of tunnel vision. You're focused on one avatar. And the thing is that who you think your product might be serving, that's only a small piece of the pie,
Yeah.
right? You don't realize all these other people. And so when we start seeing reviews come in of these different markets and these different avatars, right, that maybe we did include in the marketing strategy for our testing phase to figure out who the right message is for given on the right audience. But ultimately, when you see the reviews come in and it's people you didn't even think about, and you start realizing this is having a way bigger impact
Yeah.
on different kinds of people all over the world than you really ever thought it would. And so when we first got into this business, when we start seeing those type of things come in, it really does open up your mind to, the amount of people that you're touching with this. So a given moment, I don't know if I can put my finger on a one time where I was like, aha, I found it. But, a lot of things have compounded recently over the past year, that have given me a broader perspective on everything that I do,
Yeah.
right? It's not about it's not about us, it's not about the client. It's about the world of who they're serving, right? When you're coming up with an app or a startup or any company for that matter, you're trying to solve a specific problem for a specific person. And you're trying to essentially change the world with
But
this
the
app.
beauty is sometimes you don't even know the creation that's building
No, you have
has
no
so
idea.
many more positive effects
Oh yeah.
and more opportunities and how to help or navigate someone's life that you didn't think of. Like, I think back of and more recently with a few friends going through some breakups and some marriage issues, like I think back and I'm like, when I was developing the relationship with myself, what that allowed me to do is to further communication and figure out these things that would help my marriage in real time.
Hmm.
Right. But when I went into that, that wasn't necessarily the goal, right? The goal was like working on me. Well, that led me down a path that had a bigger impact.
Right.
Now I can help or advise, hey, this is what I read. I haven't tried it, or I have tried this, and this is what's worked.
Right.
Like Caitlin and I are even going back to like our accountability meetings,
Hmm.
right? Because that communication, there's so much going on
A
right
lot
now.
going on.
Baby coming, pregnant, got our Ellie, right? Conference, TED Talk. I've
We can
got
keep going. We can go all day.
6 speaking
What's the
engagements
matter?
lined up in the next 6 weeks, right? Like there's just a
Right.
lot. So
Yeah. It's overwhelming.
the beauty of that though is you start with something and you realize that wow, this is a bigger impact
Right.
and this can help more people in so
Right.
many ways.
100%. And back to your initial question about like the meaning of impact for me is that like, where does all this go back to? Goes back to my responsibility, my team's responsibility, right? And it's not like it's just one app. It's all these different apps in companies across all categories,
Yeah.
right? We can help someone improve their anxiety and their stress relief through our, a couple of meditation apps that we're working with, a group travel app, help people take trips and get out and have fun a little bit.
Yeah.
We're working with a tennis analytics app, right? Help people get better at tennis. Like all these different random categories, industries, right? That we're having an effect on. You know, it's really cool to think about all the different aspects of life and worldwide that we're able to change and
Totally.
alter. And so that's what my impact what I want my impact to be is help my clients be successful so that the world can change for the better.
I
So
love it.
pretty cool.
I love
Yeah.
it. All right, to switch gears, I got not completely, but I got another question for you. Um, why did you become an entrepreneur? Bring us back to that decision where you're like, hey, I'm gonna turn into a crazy person because
It
entrepreneurs are
wasn't. It
crazy.
was not. It was not a clear path. That's for sure. Um, it was not on the agenda at all. I, if you go back to COVID, right, I had a really good friend of mine that wanted to start a business. And I had never really thought that I had that kind of you know, grit, I think is the right word for it, to endure that path. And, when you're, keep in mind, when you're a junior at
From
Kentucky.
the guy who works like fucking 80 hours a day, not a week, a day.
It,
He's talking about he didn't think he had grit. Like,
it's
let's
crazy.
be real, Nick. You and I are going for walks in the morning to continue our friendship because you've got grit right now.
Yeah.
You're pounding the pavement.
Well, it's crazy how one thing leads to another, right? So it doesn't always start that way
I just
in
think this
passion,
is
but
funny because I know
yeah,
you on a deep
yeah,
level, and I'm like,
right.
I would have never thought that was something in your brain
No,
because of how I've known you and how we've been
it's all
friends.
about who you surround yourself with, right? And so when you're a university student and you are focused on getting that marketing degree, getting that management degree, and going off and working that 9 to 5 job and having a great life, like that's all you're really thinking about. Like you're not thinking about getting out of your comfort zone
Yeah.
much. And it helped because I got immersed into it when I really had nothing to lose. Right, I was a junior. COVID had just hit. I was super bored, and I had a friend come up to me. He's like, "Hey, like I want to start this business." I think he had just watched Social Network. Like, got pretty fired up, right? And
Little
he's like,
motivational
Do you want to
movie.
do this with me?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not? Let's do it." And so he's like, "Okay, well, I want to do advertising for all the restaurants and bars here in the city. They don't really do much marketing. Like, opportunity, done. Sounds fun. Let's do it." And then it was just a matter of like doing it because it was fun and we were like learning. And we were able to build up this audience and make all this content and make partnerships, form relationships, throw events, get users, develop an app, like all these different things, all these skills that I acquired from this. And I didn't realize that it would actually like lead to what was next for me. Because I didn't go straight into entrepreneurship. I worked for around 8 months at a big company
Yeah.
and learned a ton, right? Had a great experience there. Honestly, like really liked it. But like at the end of the day, I knew that I had all of these new things that I had learned, these new skills that I had acquired. And I was like, that was like I enjoyed it. I was good at it. Like, why don't I just like give it a try? So that was the tough part. It was right before certifying and
Fine.
getting
Yeah.
relocated to a new city, getting the raise, everything that goes into the job. I was like, I think I'm gonna give this a try. And so I jumped out of the plane, no parachute, just free falling, like doing like 360s on the way down, And and so I did it and I quit and I launched my first little company, NG Media, basically me just freelancing for people. But was able to meet the right connections, bring on the right partners, right?
That's what it's all about, man.
And
People,
then
people
yeah,
power.
and then it just evolved and it snowballed and you learned a ton along the way, got some great clients and kind of came full circle when I got back into the startup scene with the mobile apps, right? It's crazy how things come full circle like that because I worked for a lot of different industries, a lot of real estate, and the only way to know what you don't want to do is to do that thing,
Of course.
and I did a lot of things,
You
a
got to
lot of things I didn't
assess it.
like.
You got to experience
Gonna
it.
fall for it.
And
Failed a lot, didn't like a lot of things, and then found the things I liked and latched onto it and haven't looked back.
I think too, there's opportunities where, we may try something that we don't think would work and it works,
Mhm.
right? We may try something where, did I ever think that my company would become a media company? No,
That's very true. Did
right?
you?
Never. I never thought that.
What do you think it was
Like,
gonna be?
I thought I'd do consulting and it would be face-to-face meetings and that was kind of it. And what it turned out to be is like I'm helping people position themselves in the market as part of that
Right.
consulting, which in turn leverages things like this, podcast, shooting short form content, right? All these things where I never considered myself a marketer.
Mhm.
But when I consult, most of my strategy ends up starting from the component of generating a lead,
Right.
right? Creating a new offer. Have you ever thought of this revenue stream?
Mhm.
And how do you do that? Well, you do that by building human connection
Right.
because those opportunities and those ideas typically are me saying, hey, let's not start this from scratch. Let's leverage based on a relationship we have, right? So if
Yeah.
you're going to throw an event, if you're going to do a podcast, if you're going to do a workshop, if you're going to use email marketing, all those things are based on leverage of some relationships you have. And I'll give you an example. Like, you know, don't go throw an event by yourself if you have someone in your network who wants to throw an event, right? Like, let's do it in a partnership,
Might as well.
but
Yeah.
make sure there's strategy on the front end of marketing, visibility, how you can build a relationship, get in front of people before the event, during the event, and most importantly, after the event,
Mhm.
right? Which in turn, most people just throw an event and hope that that creates this brand and that creates this stickiness that's never visible or never trackable.
Mhm.
So that back end follow up. Well,
Right.
how do you do that back end follow up? Well, you may not have a system, but you may know someone who has Go High Level, ding, 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 that could give you a free system,
Great platform.
right? You know, like the different opportunities within what you have. And that's where we create. That's where I believe that I create a strategy
Right.
that isn't just go buy this, and implement it, right? Like, how can we get really unique and how can we leverage? And I think for most people doing under a million, they're in that phase where they don't have this cash flow that's, $100,000 in excess to go
Right.
spend these things.
Mhm.
So how do we bootstrap it, right? I
Mhm.
don't never want to be the consultant that comes in and costs you another 10 grand.
Right.
I want to be the consultant that comes in and leverages what we have in hopes that we have enough through human connection, not just a system or a tactic within your business. And I think that's important, which leads me to your question. To question for you is, you talked about it changed when you got around the right people.
Right.
Who are some of those people, and how'd you get around them?
So my friend, when I was at University of Kentucky, was my good friend Selden, and he had a big mindset for doing bigger things, right? Doing something cool, doing something that can make an impact, right? And so a lot of the qualities that I had, as I mentioned, I was very comfortable. I was going to get my degree, go work the job, do the thing. And I didn't want to get out of that comfort zone. Guys like him help me get out of my comfort zone,
Yeah,
get to the next level, etc. And then you go and you start the business and you realize that I can't just keep freelancing by myself forever. And so you have to bring on partners, right? And my partner Patrick, who's been an instrumental part of everything that I've done, right? Through, mentoring me through, client relations, right? Huge deal, right?
of
Knowing how
course.
to work with clients, fulfillment, how to execute services properly. I had all these skills, especially on the creative front, that I was really good at. He was very skilled in paid advertising. So we complemented each other very well.
Totally.
And so finding people that complement you and you can learn from, and then also they can learn from you, the rest is
The
history.
value
Value
exchange.
exchange.
But I think you
Yeah.
hit such a key point. They've got to complement you and not necessarily be the exact same offering,
No, no,
right? And I
exactly. It
think
wouldn't make
that's
sense.
that's where I
Well, it could.
struggled.
Yeah, it
Like,
could.
oh, this person's really good at building relationships,
Right.
so let me attract to them. But in
Yeah.
turn, there's not a good value exchange in that
Right.
partnership.
And even with me and you, like when I first got to Nashville, I came to Nashville not knowing anyone. I just wanted to go out and network and meet people and like, get immersed in the community. And the first thing I saw on Eventbrite was Impact.
Let's go.
It was like a $15 ticket. I was like, oh, this is a paid networking event. It's got to be pretty good. And
That's
so,
it.
and so I was like, screw it, I'm going to pay $15. I'm going to go to the Renaissance and network my butt off. And I remember when we met and the first time we got coffee, we were just like, I feel like we didn't even talk about like what we came there to talk about. I think we were talking about like real estate marketing or something like that. And we just like chatted and like, chopped it up about
Life
entrepreneurship
and
and life for
business.
like the
Yeah,
entire like hour and a half or
I
whatever.
remember.
And
Yeah.
then I think we left and I was like, we even like talk about what we came here to talk about. But anyway, like the same dynamic you're talking about, right? I was very good with the tech side of things, creativity, that type of thing. And then you were very good at like building things and working with people in the human connection aspect, right? And so we worked really well together on a lot of different
It's a lot
projects.
of value
Right, a lot of
exchange.
value exchange.
Yeah.
And so like things like that, exactly. But if you're the same type of person, yeah, I'm sure they can be a great friend, obviously. I'm sure that you guys could both, dive into specific aspects of the business together because you both have that same mindset, same qualities. But ultimately, for maximum growth and for time efficiency, the more you can cover different aspects of the business at one time, the faster you're going to
Of
grow.
course.
Right.
And I think
And
too,
so,
like the relatability is great from human to human, but the technical experience, tactical side of it needs to be an offering of
right.
value
Yeah.
exchange, right?
Yeah.
Like relatability is we like similar stuff. We do
Right.
similar stuff. We like working in similar places, right? Like W and Barista Parlor, like those are our
Easy.
vibes, right?
Easy.
So like that makes things easy
Yeah.
for us to come together.
Right.
But when we come together, that value exchange is amazing because you bring in the tech side, the marketing side of that, how to do this, how to set this up, where I'm more like vision, how do I make this happen?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then, hey, have you thought about this?
Mhm.
Or, hey, have you connected with this person? I think
Mhm.
that's also something that
Huge.
I think our relationship has been great because we've both gone to things together, right? Like when we're out in LA and we were at that experience and we met up with Selden and we met up with my friend and we leveraged some of those conversations. And then we went to the event and I spoke at it. And then we, met certain people and it was
Great trip.
just,
Great trip.
it was just a great trip. But it was a great trip because we could offer different things.
Yeah.
We came together, we did fun things that we both aligned with. And at the end of the day, we both made money from that trip. We made great relationships from that trip. But more importantly, man, I don't know about you, but I had a freaking hell of a time. It was fun.
It was
And
a
I think that's
blast.
the
Yeah.
number one thing that we forget to do is have fun on these opportunities. Like, I remember traveling a lot where I would go to a place and I was like miserable. And then I had to reframe. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I've never experienced this. Let me go find a cool coffee shop to have a coffee and talk to the owner. Like, I remember down in Houston, we went to this empanadas place, had the best empanadas I've ever had, like breakfast empanadas, right? And it was like one of those situations where I was dreading Houston. It was 112 degrees. It was the middle of summer. It wasn't a paid speaking gig, right? But when you change the lens and the perspective, it was an amazing opportunity.
Mhm.
We also went to Galveston Beach. We realized we'll never go back there. That place sucks, right? But like, cool. Now I know.
Right.
It was always on the list of beaches. Like, it's disgusting. The water was brown and it was just shitty, and it was all like, but that was cool that I got to experience it. And now I don't have to go buy a flight or spend money and book a week vacation and be miserable the whole
Can I
time.
ask a question real quick? So
Yeah.
this is back to what you said about going to a coffee shop, going to, a restaurant and talking with the owner, right? I find that very interesting because a lot of people, it depends on what city you're in, but a lot of people don't always make any effort to talk to, I don't want to say a stranger, but a stranger, right? Like a random person. What has been your, biggest takeaway from, connecting with new people and not being afraid to go start conversations with random people? Because I feel like a lot of people are really hesitant to,
Preparation. That's
right,
as simple as I can get.
right.
I have to be prepared. So when the opportunity arises to connect deeply with someone, I'm ready and I can step up to the plate and take the swing. The swing doesn't always hit the ball out of the park.
Hmm.
But if I'm prepared, if I've done my reps, if I have a strategy in place where I show up and I meet that person, and I'll give you a perfect example. I talked about this last night on a podcast that I was on. I went to the Titans practice the other day. Good client of mine, friend of mine, new friend, is a head coach. He's not the head coach, but he's the strength and conditioning
Cool.
head
Yeah.
coach, right? So we were in the friends and family. Well, the new coach Callahan walks by us, and I'm with someone. I'm like, "Hey, that's the head coach. I'm gonna go introduce myself to him." And he was like, "Oh, no, no, man." And so I was like, "Oh, dude, like, come on, come on." And I turn around and he already went into his office, locked behind doors, right? So I missed the opportunity.
Right.
But what I realized in that moment was I was prepared to have a conversation with the head coach. He wasn't. And just by me stopping and turning and talking to him for another 10 seconds about it, we both lost the opportunity, right? Well, what I realized in that moment was I'm prepared to have those conversations. And I actually brought it back parallel to when I was in a very similar situation. Got invited to a charity event for the Patriots right before they won the Super Bowl a few years back, and we were on the 50-yard line, and I wasn't prepared. I almost didn't go up to Gronk and get his autograph. I almost didn't go up to Tom Brady.
Right.
I waited till the last minute. Tom was running off the field, and I got a shitty scribbled autograph. Like you'd be like, that's not Tom Brady's autograph, right? Because he was running. I waited till the last minute,
Right.
because I needed to use the time
Yeah.
to prepare for what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And I got Tom's autograph, but it doesn't look like his autograph because it was, and he was out the
Doesn't
door.
matter what it looks like.
But my point of that is saying that I'll never miss those opportunities. This was a situation where I missed that opportunity because I let the person with me ruin it.
Mhm.
But I was prepared. Like I was literally walking that way to go shake his hand.
Yeah.
And every time I've done that, whether it's been a person on a flight, like I've taken a late night flight, and I used to fly a lot, right? Not so much with the kiddos per my own choice, but I used to have free drinks, as many as I want every flight. And I remember sitting down, and it's a late flight and there's someone not next to me, but the seat over. And I'm like, hey, I have free drinks. Do you want some beers? Do you want some wine? And just because I was prepared to offer something of value, we ended up having a great conversation, and ended up like she introduced me to two or three people that I ended up doing business with. So it's like I was prepared, and I leveraged something of value in that moment. Now, if I didn't have free drink tickets, I would have had a strategic plan
Right.
to navigate that
Pivot, right? Figure out
conversation
something else.
and
Yeah.
pivot on something else. But
Yeah.
I've got things stacked to
Catch
where
your
I can,
value.
yeah.
You're in, yeah.
And it can start with something as simple as this. Hey, I like your shoes, right? And be careful with that, because we don't want to just use someone's materialistic stuff
Right.
to leverage and broker a deep conversation. But like, if you don't have anything, start with that. But you got to believe it.
Right.
You got to be compassionately curious. And I think that's the thing that we lack, is the compassion piece, because I could say, Nick, nice shoes, and think those are the ugliest fucking shoes I've ever seen in my life. That's going to come through in our conversation. The human connection's not going to be as deep. If I truly believe it, let's talk about your shoes. I do like your shoes, by the way.
Thank you so much.
I would never wear your shirt, though.
$40 on Amazon.
I would never wear that shirt, right? It's just not my color, personally,
my favorite.
right? I think you look good in it. I don't think I would. So I wouldn't comment.
I couldn't pull off the V-neck. I'll say that right now.
I wouldn't
couldn't do it.
comment on that, because I'm not compassionate about it. I would talk about your shoes.
Right.
But those are the easiest things. Look for commonality and relatability first, right? Like peek over, see if what book that person's reading. See what kind of backpack they have. Is it a brand you align with? Is it a brand you never heard of? That's also beauty in things like, that backpack looks really cool. What is that? Toomey? I don't know what Toomey is.
I'm not sure what it is,
right? I do. I have a briefcase that's Toomey, but I like it. But in your case, you could say, what's Toomey? I like that backpack. Now that's a conversation.
Races, yeah. It's so cool hearing you talk about this, because, like, again, no one is ever going to like be this strategic in their, human connection with other people in their network, going to a networking event, right? And you've always talked about that, like being able to actually have a plan when going to an event. 99% of people just like kind of show up.
Wish and pray. Or there's ego in it. There was a piece of that I had to go through. Is I thought when I walked into an event, everybody wanted to talk to me. I was making so much damn money, making all these connections, getting on this show, this podcast. It was all ego.
Yeah.
And then no one wanted to talk to me. Right? Like
they could smell it.
Yeah, of course, man. You can't be an asshole. You're trying to connect with people. Yeah. But again, it comes down to the compassion.
Right.
You got to care. Dude, I'm not going to ask you, hey, man, what's the coolest place you visited, if I don't give a fuck where the coolest place you visited, right? Like, that doesn't work. And then you start to drum up the follow-up questions, which I think is the beauty of it, right? Mm-hmm. That person says Bermuda. Well, let's have a conversation about Bermuda. You either been there, you haven't, you want to go, you don't want to go, you want to know why they went, what the experience was like. There's a million questions that can come about it, but you've got to start with those questions, and you got to revert it back to the person. Why did you choose Bermuda? Not how was cool as the resort, right? I want to know about you. So when you say that, right, I chose Bermuda because of this, you're going to tell me valuable information that allows us to deeply connect. Most people stop at, oh, what resort did you go to? How was the vacation? That's cool. Surface level cotton candy conversations. Go deep. Why did you choose Bermuda? When was the last vacation you went on with your family? Oh, you didn't go on this vacation with your family? You went on it with your friends? Oh, what from high school? Okay, now this person has had the same 3 friends from high school. Now I know about that. That person shows loyalty, right? I also know that they went on vacation and they may not have a family now. Or maybe they're divorced. Or maybe this was just every year they go on this guy's trip, and that tells me how important it is, the bond that they have and how they've built that bond over years, right? I'm analyzing this in real time and asking questions about the person, right? Like, I was on a call this morning and I said, and this person was telling me everything about their family, everything about their business. And I said, how are you? How are you? When you look back on the weekend, how was the weekend for you? Well, now that's starting to tell me, oh, well, this and that, and it was really family, and I didn't really get any alone time. Well, now I know that that person loves their family. That person's dedicated to their family. Weekends are important to that person for their family.
Right.
So I'm not going to say, hey, let's shoot a podcast on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
You just told me what I needed to know, right? So there's strategy in how you communicate, there's strategy in how you plan, there's strategy in how you follow up. But you've got to ask the questions about the person, not just the questions about the thing or the experience. Human connection is derived through shared experiences. Human connection is derived through shared heightened senses and emotions, those things that happen where you're really high or you're really low.
Right.
And they also happen in shared beliefs. How do you get to those things? It's not, hey, you like Cancun and I like Cancun. It's we shared an experience in Cancun through alignment. Did you go with your family? Cool. I went with mine too. Right? What were the challenges with the family going to Cancun and overseas? And did you have passport issues? Blah, 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 right? Like that's
Right.
where the deep connection around the experience happens. Most people are like, oh, dude, I love Cancun.
Who doesn't like Cancun? I've never been there, but I'm sure I would like
But
it.
that statement, if you're trying to build human connection, is
Yeah.
surface level cotton candy.
Right.
It does nothing
So
for
what about
you.
when you are on a Zoom call, like you were talking about, right? Everything is so virtual these days. What if you're on a Zoom call with someone you're just now meeting? Maybe they're a potential client, maybe it's a
Yeah.
networking thing. What questions and how do you frame these questions that you have to ask in order to get them to not just say good or yes or like these one word answers? Because that's one thing that I'm always playing around with different Zoom intros. When I first get on the call, right, you always have to like start the
Yeah.
conversation some way. And ultimately, you don't want to be like if you're there for a business purpose, you want to get to that as soon as possible. But
Mhm.
based on where I, have the best conversations and the best relationships with people is through getting to know them a little bit before you dive into all that stuff.
Yeah.
So like how do you get on calls and, make that relationship with people before diving in?
I think it's that preparation that starts before the call, right? Are you looking at their Facebook? Are you looking at their social media? Are you looking at their TikTok? Are you looking at their LinkedIn? How do they show up professionally and how do they show up themselves in
Mm,
their personal life? I
right.
think
Preparing.
understanding
Yeah.
those differences tells you a lot about someone.
Mm,
If their Facebook page is all about bars on Broadway and drinking and this and that, well, then I know that they enjoy that, right? Maybe that tells me a little bit about their maturity level. Maybe that tells me that I can now tell a story about when I used to be like that. Just because I don't go to Broadway and party anymore doesn't mean I haven't.
mm,
Doesn't mean I'm not relatable.
mm,
Doesn't mean I know that Garth Brooks just opened and it's popping, or Morgan Wallen's just opened, right? And Eric
mm,
Churches, and they shut down the streets every Thursday through Sunday. Like I'm in the know because I read, I talk to people, I have a lot of great human connections.
right.
So it starts in the preparation, but in that process, why did you start this company? Why did you get into real estate?
There we go.
Right? Like asking why, not how long have you been in real estate? It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. Why do you do it? That's going to tell me about that person. Right? Oh, well, I got into real estate because, and I've had this. I got into real estate because I can make a lot of money. That tells me right there, okay, cool. Like, is that the only reason why? Like, is it all about the money? Yeah, my goal is just to make $1 million, do it as fast as I can, however I can. Now I know what their beliefs are. Those are not in line with my beliefs in the period I'm in right now. There was a time where it was all about money, race to a
Hmm.
million. I'm just not in that. I'm not interested in that relationship now. I know. And I was this happens when collaboration, when I ask this question, why do you want to collaborate on this project? What do you see the outcome? What's so important?
Hmm.
I had someone say, oh, dude, like, we're going to make money off this. If you're starting a networking group to make money, dude, I'm not doing it with you, period. Well, I knew that right there and then. I don't have to have a meeting. I don't have to talk about a business plan. I don't have to do a forecast or a financial analysis. We don't align, and there's never going to be deep connection.
Hmm.
You're building a networking group to make money. I'm building a networking group to help our community.
Right. Have an impact.
Two different spectrums.
Hmm.
So I really try to dive into the person. One of the best questions are, how are things? When I started off, right? Most people are like, "Oh, don't say that on a cold call or this and that," because
How are things?
it gives them
Yeah.
it gives them the opportunity to say, they're bad, or, and then you've got to pivot. Well, how are things isn't a temperature check for me. It's an importance check for me. Hey, how are things going right now? If that person decides to talk about business, they want to talk about business on this call.
Mhm.
If that person decides to talk about, oh, things are good, man. Family's rocking and rolling. We just had a vacation. Business is good. Well, now I know that there's relatability around family, and this person wants to entertain or have a conversation that may start off a little bit more social. That's more important. They decide on how they answer how are things to go business or personal. So I like that question. Now, of course, if it's a call, oh, things are terrible. Well, you either gotta spin it or reschedule. I'm more of a fan of let's not have this conversation. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna try to jam something down your throat when you go,
Right.
my fucking day is terrible. It started off awful. Great, man. Let's not talk
Well, then you
right now.
figure out a way. Okay, how can we turn this around for you?
Yeah,
How can we make it
yeah.
a little bit
Let's reschedule this, man. I never want to talk to people when my day sucks this much. I feel for you, right? That's me
Yeah.
showing empathy and
Yeah.
being real.
Yeah.
So I think there's different ways. There's a million different situations and scenarios. I think people just don't practice.
Mhm.
And here's the beauty. There's so many people that you can test this on, you can try it on. Like you're not going to lose. You're just going to get better. And I think that's what people are scared of. That person's going to reject me. Tom Brady was going to reject me that day. That's what I was scared of. If I seen
That'd be
Tom
a damn
Brady right
shame.
now, I'm gonna walk up to him as if we were friends for the last 35 years. Tom, what's up, brother? How we doing, man? Let's go toss the pigskin around. Like it's a completely different level of um comfortability with me because I'm prepared for it. I've done it enough, tested it enough. Like and then I've done it to the point where I'm like, hey, what's up? Blah, blah. And the person's like, oh man, how we know each other? How do I know you? I've never met the person, but I brought that energy and that confidence
Right.
and that clarity. I had clarity on what I was going to do, which bred confidence for me. That confidence allowed the energy transfer to start off the conversation like we're already friends.
Do you get that a lot where people come up to you and they act like they already know you, or they think they met you before, even though you've never met this person in your entire life?
Um, I can kind of see through the bullshit. Sometimes I can see if it's just a play. Like, oh, we've met, and then I'll ask questions. Where? When? What's the time frame?
A lot of people actually do like think that, like I get that all the time where people come up to me and like, oh, like have I met you before? And I'm like, I don't think so. Not that I know of. I don't know.
I think it's a shitty icebreaker. I
It could
think
be.
that's a strategy.
But you also mentioned something about, if you are a very energetic person, very charismatic person, right? Some people will think that they've met you. I don't know. I think that's a real thing. I think there's two sides of it, but I see your point there.
I don't know enough about
Yeah.
it. Besides, I used to use the tactic, and I didn't know the person.
Mhm. Fair
Um,
enough.
and it was just a tactic to create relatability
So
that
you've been
that
there.
wasn't real.
Right.
It doesn't work. I wouldn't advise to do it. I would just say be you and
Mm-hmm.
actually be curious.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you want to know about this person? What drives them? Why they wake up in the morning? What their why is? What their passion is? Are they living in their calling? Are they living in their purpose or are they not? Right? Have they just gone through something traumatic? Can you be a resource to help them? Can you introduce them to someone that relieves some of the stress? Can you introduce them to someone who could solve their problem, whether it's business or life? These are the questions that we should be showing up because we care about humans. And I think if you care, you have those questions. You're always seeking the better for that person. Well, how can you do that in real time? You got to get deep. Like why are you, helping all these business owners? Why did you do the app stuff? We heard it when you defined impact. That's why I asked this question, right? It's a deep question because you're going to tell me why you do this. You don't do it because you like marketing. You do it because these app owners are going to change millions and millions of lives through their users, and you want to position them to solve the problem of the consumer, the end
Mm-hmm.
user.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's deep. I now know what you believe, right? If you told me earlier, hey, impact to me is getting to 90 million users and sitting on a beach and enjoying my life, well, now I know what Nick's all about. He's all about himself,
And the
you know?
coolest part is, and I'm sure it's the same thing for you. And obviously, you can talk about your impact, obviously, like my impact and what I want to have. The best part about it is I get to go about every day leveraging the aspects of myself that I enjoy most.
Dude, that's a thing of
which is
beauty.
pretty cool, right?
That's a
The
thing of beauty.
creativity aspect of it, the social part of it, being able to see all these unique projects on a daily basis, it's magical. It's
Sounds
cool.
like there's a lot of gratitude. You've done some gratitude
Oh,
work.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
it's
Actually, I
beautiful.
don't do a lot of gratitude work. I think maybe I do like indirectly. It's not like I sit down and like list out my gratitude, but
I don't either. But this,
I think about it. I think a lot,
I was
you
just
know?
gonna say, you are very real time aware. I think that's why we align so well, is we both have really hyper awareness. And I think that's a gift.
Mm,
I think you can learn it and you can train on it. I've never learned or trained on it. I think it was just how I've grown up in some situations and scenarios that I've been in, right? I'm always kind of aware. Um, I can kind of foresee things based on energy, not going crazy psycho, but like I'm just thinking back, like, hey, that person, there, like, there's an issue between those people. There may be a conflict, and then 10 minutes
right.
later, two girls are screaming at each other, right? Like, right, you can just kind of feel it and see it, like
Yeah,
especially when someone calls me, I can kind of feel the tone and the energy on the
right. Pick
phone.
up on it. Yeah.
Um, but back to you. I have one more question before we wrap up. Um, was thinking through this as you were asking me about the human connection piece. What is the reason why you wake up every day and work as hard as you do right now?
I think the reason that I pursue any of the goals that I have for myself is because I know what my own potential is, and I've always known what it is. And I've had many, many days where I just knew that I was not even close to living up to what I knew I was able to do. You know what I mean? And I'm still
Yeah,
getting there. But every day, that's the kind of the first thing I think of, right? And you realize that you're not on an island on this journey, right? It's not just me. Um, I grew up Catholic. You know, I believe in that. I have a
there
great
you go.
family. I
Yeah,
have a big support system. And when
foundation.
you forget those things a lot because like every day, you live by yourself, you work,
This
you work
stuff's
alone,
lonely, man.
right?
It is. It's
I have
lonely.
it. Yeah, even when you
It's
have a
lonely.
team, right? You're alone working all the time. You don't have other coworkers, and it's a process that you have to adapt to. And so when I wake up every day and I pursue this mission of helping all these founders, right? And helping them get out of situations that I've been in before when I was getting started. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah,
I know how terrifying it is, right? And so I have certain reminders for myself, including that, where it sort of allows me to zoom out a little bit and look at the big picture.
totally.
Because when you're so in it, it's so difficult to look at it from a broader perspective. Um,
You have
and
all those
so
responsibilities on you,
it's not
and
just about me anymore.
and sometimes you
Right.
don't have someone to discuss those or to filter through some of those,
Right.
and the pressure is you're the one making the
Oh
decision,
yeah.
so you've got to have the relationships to
Exactly.
leverage to make sure that's the right decision. But it's lonely, man. It's lonely. It's
It's
lonely.
not about me anymore. I have a team, right? When you have a team, you have a large client base, and then all of their client base, their users, right? That's a whole lot of people that if you go back
Yeah,
to point fingers, that I'm responsible for, right? And so the moment that I stopped seeing that as stressful and started seeing that as super exciting,
yeah.
I think that was it. And it's been a cool process because it did not come right away. It took a little bit to start viewing it from that perspective.
That reminds me
Yeah.
of Dr. Justin's TED Talk that he just released.
Oh yeah.
The same emotions around fear and excitement.
Yeah.
They're the same emotions,
Yeah. And the thing is
you
I'm
know?
not a very I'm not a very I take things seriously, but I'm very, as you know, I like looking at the humor in
Of
things, right?
course.
And I like to think that God has a sense of humor. And so when I think about my day to day and I think about things that something might have not gone right, right? Something went wrong. And then you get stressed for a split second. And then I'm like, it's not really that big of a deal. I'll fix it like that. I'll be fine, you know? And that's what keeps things fun for me. And I
Totally.
just view it as like you know, you have to view it as a game, business is a game, and you gotta have fun with it. So
Let's go, man. Let's go. I love it. Thanks for
Oh
sharing
yeah.
that,
Oh yeah.
especially from the heart. I felt
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, man. Again, thanks for having me on here, man. It's been long overdue. I've been waiting for Jim to hit me up and be like, "Hey, when are we going on the pod?" And here we are. So it's really cool to see this whole place come together, and really excited to see the things that you're going to continue to do, man, with this conference. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely.